Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sierra Vista City Council work session for December 6th, 2022. And we have everybody here. And Mr. Benning's supposed to be on the phone. You there, William?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're all here. And we'll get started. The first order of business is the December 8th, 2022 council meeting agenda, which has been attached. And obviously we do the call to order, the roll call, the pledge, awards and presentations. Then we're going to have a presentation from the Historical Society.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought normally we accepted the agenda before we had presentations, but that's just the way this is written this time, I guess. Don't we?
Can fix it.
Don't we normally accept the agenda, then we do the presentations?
We usually do,
accepted?
yes.
You didn't
We'll get that fixed,
you
sir.
didn't catch me sleeping this week.
Okay.
Last meeting.
Okay, let's see. So acceptance agenda and the city manager report. Chuck, have you got anything you want to share with us before?
Waiting for the new sales tax numbers. Hopefully I'll have those by Thursday. If not, I'll let you know when they come in. We'll have a CCOM board meeting. Of course, we're focused on staffing there and standing up the Dispatch Academy at Cochise College, which we hope will begin in the middle of January. On a side note, we've had a lot of success recruiting police officers recently, so we should have hopefully 5 at least in the next academy in January. Of course, there's a lag time with the academy and field training before they'll actually be able to be deployed on the street, but this is the best we've seen in police recruiting for quite some time, so hopefully that'll bleed over in the dispatch, fingers crossed. Also, a lot of success with the civilian police positions that the council approved in this year's budget. We budgeted for 2. We had 5 actually made it through, so I went ahead and authorized all 5 to be hired, and we'll put some of those through Dispatch Academy as well as part of their training. So that was a very good idea, and we've had a very good response. So some bright news as far as that goes. And then I'll have normal project updates, and I'll have those ready for that meeting. Don't have them with me right now.
Any questions for Mr. Petrucci on this report? Yes, sir.
With respect to the CCOM board meeting, when is that going to be held again?
9 o'clock at Thursday.
Thursday.
At CCOM. Yeah.
Thursday? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You said 5 civilian officer? I thought we approved,
Approved 2.
so, okay, so we're just gonna,
Overfill.
I don't know how this works. When
We're
we
going
hire
to
more people, no more.
we're going to overfill them. There's a potential of one of them becoming an officer. And because we've been down so much in terms of our officer strength and the budget, we have plenty of room in the personnel budget to accommodate them.
Right,
So,
okay.
Any work to do?
Oh, sure, yeah, no, I was happy about it, I just didn't
Yeah.
understand how, okay, thank you, that's great.
Okay, anything else?
We're talking about everything in the,
Well, that comes later, that comes later on the, that's item B on the next item.
good.
Okay. So anything else on this report? Okay. And we have the consent agenda. We have 2 sets of council meeting minutes for November 10th and November 22nd. Any additions, deletions, corrections, comments, discussion on those 2 items? Okay, I'm hearing none. So item 2.3 is the appointment and reappointment of a couple of planning and zoning commissioners. Any comments, questions? Okay, see none. 2.4 is the reappointment of a couple, let's see, is it a couple? Yeah, a couple of Parks and Rec commissioners. Any comments or questions, discussion on that item? Okay,
Just glad to have all the commissioners.
yep. Okay, public hearing item number 3. And that is, hang on, that's Ms. Adams.
Mayor Mueller, members of council, items 3 and 4 are related. in that both are applications that have been submitted by Matthew Brown on behalf of Tombstone Brewery. Item 3 is a application for a Series 3, which is an in-state microbrewery license. And item 2280 is his restaurant liquor license application. This is a process known as stacking licenses. What business owners have to do is they have to acquire the different licenses that govern the different activities, and it's my understanding that Mr. Brown will be doing both these activities, running the restaurant as well as running a microbrewery in the facility at 332 North Garden. The posting of the public hearing was placed on the facility, and no comments from the public have been received, pro or con. The police department has done their background check on Mr. Brown and has no objection to this moving forward. And if approved on Thursday, they will be returned to the state Friday via email for final action.
Okay, thank you. The only question is, I thought, did we do one of these before for them?
No,
Or
sir.
I'm making stuff up, I guess, huh? Okay, so, hopefully they'll get approved and get open here soon. Seems like it's been well before COVID.
Long time coming.
It's a
Yes,
long
sir.
time. Any other comments or questions on those two items? Okay, pretty routine. We'll now go to new business. We have an item that's been tabled regarding the Patagonia Union High School CDL training. So obviously, we're gonna have to have a motion to bring it off the table first, and then we'll discuss the item. Any item, Chuck, you got an update or report?
Well, hopefully we can avoid all that, depending on what Jill tells me here. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in reviewing this, as you know, we have a number of entities that we're providing service to, and then as Councilman Johnson pointed out, we have this now IGA. In discussions with the city attorney, we have determined that we do not need the IGAs, and we can instead simply run a class like we do, in other areas for training, charge appropriate fees to recover our costs, and avoid even the need for any IGAs in this case. So our recommendation for you is to take the item off the table or take it off the agenda.
And that's the one thing we haven't done before. We haven't taken the table item off the agenda. How do we do that can we do that administratively rather than having to bring it on and then vote no on it?
I will double check with the city attorney. It's my understanding, because it was voted to be placed on the table, that it will have to be brought off the
back off the
table
table.
and then removed at the meeting.
removed at the
But if
meeting.
there's
Okay.
any other way that it can be done, I will find
Well,
out for
that
you.
makes sense to me, but I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we're,
That is the process, since it was officially voted to be tabled.
okay.
So
we'll
we
do
have
it
to,
according to oil then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any questions, discussion?
One of my main concerns was the small amount that the city was receiving for this training. I don't know what Mr. Butterworth's position is on the city, whether he was doing this training on city time. There were a number of things that were still very cloudy as far as I was concerned, and that's why I tabled it at our last meeting. Those questions haven't been answered yet, and Sharon's here now, so maybe she can shed some light on this for us.
Go ahead, Chair.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, there was a misunderstanding at the last meeting, and we apologize for that. The fee that is charged for the CDLs is for testing only. That does not include training. So when you look at it as testing only, the numbers look a lot better for cost recovery. The average test will take, Bob, about 3 hours. So we are getting cost recovery back out of this process.
All right, well, that's good, because I spoke with J.D. Rottweiler, and just this last spring, they incorporated a CDL licensing down at the Douglas campus, and it's been very, very successful down there. They've been taking like 5 trainees per session, and they're not providing, surprisingly enough, they're not providing the testing. So I think this may be a good marriage all around. Thank you, Sharon.
All right,
Yeah, hey,
thanks for the question, thanks for the clarification. I hear somebody else?
Hey, I just wanted to jump in on what Councilman Johnson said. I believe part of the reason, Councilman Johnson, is because you can't administer the class and be the one that tests them, so they have to have a different tester. So that's why our service will be a good service for the community.
A good point. Anybody else have a question, any comments?
I think this way of doing it makes a lot more sense, and you don't have to approve every IGA that comes before council, to the
At
city.
least on this, this
Yeah.
one.
Agreed.
So good idea, whoever came up with it.
Okay, so then we'll deal with that. And then item number 6, highway user revenue funds, Mr. Felix. I don't see Mr. Felix.
They all look to the right.
Chuck, I guess you got this one.
Hold on. Oh,
Transfer
yeah.
for highway user revenue
In
fund.
the HERF money.
I don't know where Dave is, but yeah, I can do that. Oh, okay, Mr. Mayor, this is actually a good news item, so pull that up here real quick. Item 6 regards the transfer of funds between funds based on the year-end audit and the amount of money that we look to be revenues over expenditures for the last fiscal year. That was some $2.8 million. So per council policy, we're to make a recommendation to you with regards to the use of that generated fund balance from the previous fiscal year. So that's what we're doing today. So we're recommending $1 million of that amount go towards the Capital Improvements Fund, which should assist us in funding the animal control facility next fiscal year. $1 million to go to HERF to help with street maintenance budget next fiscal year. About $600,000 to $700,000 going to general fund reserve, which will give us 5 to 10% boost in general fund reserves and put us over the $6 million mark for that. And then a small amount, I think it's $50,000 to $80,000 to make the city's health and accident fund whole with regards to a proposal that we're making to reduce the employee dependent care coverage for their health insurance for the coming year. So it's about $70 or so per month that will benefit the employees, and this will help fund that as well. So with the current state of inflation, et cetera, our health and accident fund is actually doing quite well and has over $6 million of reserves in it now. So and then we'll evaluate and see if we can keep going with that in the future then after this year. So that's our recommendation to you for this particular item.
Discussion or questions? Actually,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I just got one, hey Chuck, if you could just, sorry, if you could just talk about the last part you talked about the insurance premiums. Can you just cover that one part again to make sure I understand how that's gonna bring the prices down for our employees?
Yes.
Okay.
As you're aware, we provide, health insurance to our
Right.
employees. Many employees, of course, have families, and they have to pay a premium for dependent care coverage. So our proposal is then to apply these funds to help with a 10% decrease in dependent care coverage, and that should help the employees targeted towards those with families that probably could use it a lot more than somebody like me. So,
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. And I think those are some good decisions there, Chuck. I appreciate the recommendations. And thank you, David, for being here with us tonight.
You can cover it at the meeting Thursday.
All right, that's item 6. Any other further questions or discussion on item 6? All right, thank you. We could now go on item number 7, CCOM, Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So about a year ago, the CCOM board asked me if I would lead a group in revising the CCOM IGAs and bylaws. That is still ongoing. There's a number of things that need to be updated to reflect very outdated language and to change some things regarding operations. But one thing specifically came up that required, the board decided to vote on it and recommend to city council and the board of supervisors to make one change now, and that's a change that affects the operations committee. The current situation is that the current IGA, the members of the operations committee are all of the chiefs of the police departments and fire departments that are members of CCOM, but it also includes a number of fire departments that the county had a statutory obligation to provide basic services to them. And we're talking about very small fire districts like Portal or San Juan or I think Bowie. So they're very small. Most of them are very far away. And so their chiefs very rarely can make it to an operations committee meeting. They're currently part of the quorum. So it's been very difficult for the operations committee to meet, and this has become more and more of a problem. So this is just a change at this time to address that operations committee issue. What it would do is establish a tier system where subscribers who pay a full amount to receive full dispatching service from CCOM would be in tier 1. Those organizations that receive basic service through a statutory obligation would be in tier 2. Those in tier 2 would still be welcome to participate in the operations committee, but they would no longer count towards the quorum. So that's the only change in the IGA proposed at this time. You will see this come back for more changes later, but that is the change at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mrs. Yarborough? Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 8 is the the amendment to judicial services contract with Mr. Kerfman. Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So your current agreement with Judge Kerfman as the city magistrate was a 2-year contract, and it expires on December 31st. So what you have before you is a new employment contract with Judge Kerfman since he was just reelected this past November. The terms of the contract are mostly the same with his previous contract. The mayor, Chuck, and I met with Judge Kerfman yesterday, and Judge Kerfman requested a $10,000 increase to what he is currently making. So that equates to about 50% of his current salary, and the current caseload of what Sierra Vista PD cites into the Justice Court is approximately 50%. We looked back at the numbers for the past 3 years. We have solid case count numbers for the past 3 years. 2020 was 55% that Sierra Vista PD cited in. 2021 was 48%. This past year was 33.9%, which when we looked was an outlier in almost every case or every court in the state. So 50% stands up, plus $5,000 a year consideration for locking in that cost for 4 years. I had an opportunity to talk to Nathan this afternoon. It's not reflected in the current contract. I didn't have a chance before we needed to get this out to you all. Even though the city's ordinance says 2 years, we can do a 2-year extension if the council would desire, since our code would allow that, or the city council would have the opportunity if you want to change the 2 years to 4 years in the city's code of ordinances, but we can do either way. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mrs. Yarborough on the agreement?
Mr. Mayor, I got a question.
Sure.
Hey, just a first question. Before we offer him a contract, doesn't the council have to accept him as our magistrate?
That's part of the agreement.
Well, the court co-location agreement, our agreement with the county, specifies that the Justice of the Peace for Precinct 5 is the city's magistrate.
Okay.
So then what has to follow on is the employment contract and the appointment of him as a city magistrate, even though technically you do that by the court agreement, but the court agreement automatically renews each year.
Yes, sir.
What are we contributing to the cost of total expenses for JP5 outside of this particular agreement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Johnson, yes, the city pays the county in 2022, or current fiscal year, we're paying $283,650.
And Victoria, what percentage of the cost is that?
Mr. Mayor,
county.
Councilmember Benning, by the formula, each year the county recalculates the caseload percentage for each justice court in the county. So the percentage last year of Sierra Vista PD cases cited into JP5 was 33.9%. That was
Okay.
calendar year 2021.
Okay, and that's the percentages you gave us. Thank you.
Got another one.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Right. What was the amount of fines that the city gave up last year to JP5? Total amount of funds and,
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Johnson, I have the total amount of court revenue for JP5. That is, we assume that 33.9% of that was the city's. The total amount of revenue the court took in was $405,871. 33.9% of that is $137,737.
thank you.
Repeat that number.
Go ahead, Mark.
She asked for you to
You need
repeat
to
it.
repeat the number, so.
Sure. 33.9% of that total number was $137,737.
So that is the money that we forfeit, right, as part of the agreement, and they get to keep, because we don't have a court system, so we don't have our own system. Part of the agreement is that money that is made in fines, they get to keep that money, right?
That's correct.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, also, of those cases, I get it, the 50%, right? How many of those cases are actually sent to other judges, not Judge Kerfman? I mean, like, obviously, they're on JP5, but how many other cases does he get to call another judge and say, hey, I'm too busy for this, can you take this for me?
I don't have I have those numbers, but not
Okay.
with me, I'm sorry.
They're generally all cited into JP5. Of course, he has a pro tem that assists him
Okay.
with some of those cases. And in fact, that's another idea we had for the future was that if the workload gets to be that there needs to be another judge pro tem, I think we should consider, doing that as well.
Isn't it true that Gary Raymaker, who was actually a real lawyer, was helping in most of the JP5 cases?
I don't know if the most, I think he's cut back his hours according to
Yeah, he's
our
cutting back, and
conversation.
there will be a new
the
judge
judge.
pro tem. I
Right.
think
Did
his
they
name is-
assign a judge pro tem yet? Are you?
I believe his last name was Allred, according to Judge Kerfman.
The reason I ask is, I mean, a $10,000 raise for what is actually what I'm asking? What exactly are we giving him a $10,000 raise for, other than him coming every year and asking for a raise, setting the precedence, and we just keep saying, okay, it's not gonna, that's not a good standard to set. I don't see the workload involved for a $10,000 raise, especially if you're getting help from other judges. So I don't see the benefit here at all. Now, you said, Victoria, we could extend the previous contract? Is that what is that,
Yes,
so that just
Councilmember
extend, that,
Rodriguez.
so everything we said before, that would just extend it? That same rate?
Judge Kerfman has agreed that if council's willing to pay the $62,000, it would be $645, that he'll accept that for 4 years. And the contract can be made 4 years per current city ordinance.
That's so nice of him to want to accept that.
I agree.
Thank you for that. Okay, and just to be clear, a Supreme Court Justice of Arizona, state of Arizona, makes about $164,000, roughly. My numbers are correct.
Yeah, close.
Okay, so this would put him at about 177, almost 178,000 a year is what he'll be making.
That's right.
Is that correct? Okay. Okay.
He'll be making more than a licensed attorney,
Which is not.
which he's not.
Okay.
Mr. Benning?
Mayor, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And just so the rest of the council knows and everybody knows, approximately, Chuck, and I'm sorry if you don't have the numbers and we're just dropping this on you. Approximately, how much would the startup be if the city ran its own municipality court?
Well, Mr. Benning, I do have some rough numbers. If we ran our own court, of course, we do not have a facility currently, so we would either have to lease or build one. So we're talking somewhere on the order of probably $5 to $10 million based on, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, but we just built a fire station that has less square footage than what a court would need for $3.3 million. So, leasing obviously would be something we would look at, and renovating existing space. There's still a cost and rental fees associated with that. So let's say we did lease just to stand up, and of course, adding in the revenue, we would get back approximately $1.8 million, and we need to do some more refinement of this. And then an annual loss, even with the revenue coming back to the city, of somewhere between $786,000 and to $876,000 per year over the next 4 years projected.
And with that number, does that include jail costs?
No, jail costs are not included in there, but we would be potentially subject
Right.
to that. Yes.
But not if the jail district goes into effect, and that's going to be
Of course,
coming
that
up
depends
soon.
on a vote of the public.
That's what we do.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I got another question, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, thanks, sir. All right, and just for comparison, what's the plus or minus revenue or cost for the transit system?
To do what?
The annual deficit or surplus of the transit system?
Okay.
We're probably subsidizing, Mayor Mueller, members of the council, on the order of probably $400,000 to $500,000 a year. I think Dave,
Okay.
That sounds
what do you think, Dave?
For transit.
Subsidy for the transit system.
The current budget is $330,000 for operating the transit. It is down from the $370 we used to be doing.
Okay, and then matches for,
The capital grant matches come out of the capital improvements fund or the general fund, but
how much are those?
depends on the projects. They don't tend to, but they're usually, capital is usually a 20% match, so that's not the 50% O&M match.
Okay, so 330 for operating costs, Mr. Benning, plus whatever we need to come up with for matches for buses and that kind of thing annually.
All right, thank you, sir. And then, last question, I think. If we were to, and I think you brought it up already, Chuck, and I appreciate it, if we were to reach out and put out a feeler for a part-time judge for the city of Sierra Vista to work in the JP5 office and per contract with the county, are we able to do that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Benning, no, by the terms of the court agreement, the court agreement specifies Justice of the Peace Precinct 5 is the city magistrate, so we would not be able to circumvent that.
Okay, so no matter what, our hands are still tied, I guess.
Well, Mayor Mueller, Councilman Benning, it is a difficult situation. We have really no leverage with regards to negotiations, either with the county or the JP. So we're trying to give you guys the best numbers we can. Really, the comparison is, do we do this, or do we, proceed with trying to stand up our own court, recognizing the significant cost increase associated with running our own court. So that's really our only option to get out from under the current situation that we're in. So really try to do the best to give you the best numbers we could. At least we got a cost locked in. Ultimately the major change between last agreement and this one is the 10,000 more a year for the next 4 years.
And I
And
want
Chuck,
to, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
William, just to get to this point, I think it's a valid thing for the council to consider when they do their strategic planning next year. And it's going to be a several-year process before we would be able to stand up in court if that was the desire of the council. So I think they're good questions for the future. I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to do in today's world to change things, but if the council wants to discuss that at a future time, particularly the strategic planning meeting, I would encourage that. And I'll say that with the mayor-elect sitting in the room here for folks that can't see him. But that's something that needs to be discussed in a thorough manner, and staff needs to come up with some more firm numbers so that you can look at it over a 2-year period, 4-year period, 6-year period, what it makes sense to do, or we leave it the way it is and continue to operate with the county.
I agree, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that. I'm gonna just ask one more question, and I know none of us can make it happen, and Chuck and Victoria can't make it happen, but I'm pretty sure Mr. Kerfman is watching, and I would love for him to be there Thursday night and explain to us why he's worth $10,000 more.
Well, it's a public meeting, and he's obviously welcome. Yes, sir.
One of the things that troubles me on this contract is that that's that additional $5,000 a year, or, yeah, $5,000 a year. It's almost like, you know, the mob walking into a bodega and say, we're going to burn your place down unless you pay us this guaranteed money. That's exactly how I feel about it. Second of all, when this came up a year ago, when we originally approved this thing, I voted against it, as did a couple of my partners up here, because I felt that we were being held hostage by a very greedy individual. I laid out my arguments about his salary being more than a licensed Superior Court judge. The agreement was one-sided against the city. It was basically holding a gun to our heads, and I object to that. My quote that was quoted in the Sierra Vista Herald was that this was an okay corral showdown moment for our city, and I voted no. And I plan to vote no this time around because I warned against this last January in a work session. I proposed a municipal court. Nothing has been done about it. So if we get a majority that says no, it's going to be one of those things. Additionally, I would like to table this particular issue and bring it up at an executive session next year with a new mayor and a relatively new council so we can hash this thing out, because there are several people that were not here when we talked about this originally. So that would be one of the tactics that I would like to use, is to table this thing until an executive session, then we can talk about it in January with new leadership.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we should change the name from IGA to IHS, which is Intergovernmental Hostage Situation, because that's more what this is. And IGA, the A is for agreement. There's no agreement here, so that should be non-void. I do not agree with $10,000 raise. I don't understand why this can keep happening every time. But I'm sure he would be fine if he comes on Thursday to say we can extend and just keep getting what he's getting now. I looked at his website. He just ran unopposed because he challenged his opponent and got those signatures thrown out. So he ran unopposed. But on his website, talks about identifying issues regarding caseload management, fiscal responsibility. So I'm sure he'll understand that why we're trying to be fiscally responsible with the money of our people when it comes to paying him $10,000 more, which we don't agree with. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just have a question. So in there, in the agreement, it says that we provide benefits as long as those benefits have not been provided by the county. So my question was, do we provide him with any other benefits?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mesmer, the only benefits we're referring to, since he is a full-time employee of the county, he receives health insurance and so on through the county. We have to provide, I think, workers' comp, it's FICA and MICA, that's
Okay.
it. He doesn't get like insurance or eye insurance or anything like
Right.
that.
But we provide those FICA and that
What we
through
would
the
have
city.
to for any contract employee.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead. Mr. Benning,
Thank-
just give us a second. Go ahead, doctor.
oh, okay.
I have, when does this need to be, is there like a deadline this has to be like settled? Is there,
The current contract does expire on December 31st.
okay. So, based on, you know, what happened last year, I feel that we are kind of SOL right now. But, I mean, I know, it does really bother me a lot, and it bothers a lot of people, and it's definitely like being backed into a corner. But at the same time, how many days have we had since that day till now that, you know, any of us could have came in every single day causing, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease type of thing, and that has not happened. Now we're at the very end, last minute type of thing. You know, what are we gonna do? Like, there are certain places or memberships or whatever where you pay to have a locked-in fee. I feel like, you know, pros and cons, you know, to have a locked-in fee for a little bit of time. Well, what are we gonna do? I feel like it would be great if we could have our own court system, if we could support our own court system, if we could, you know, have that. But that is something that would take many, many years of planning. If you look at some of the different things that have happened around the city for the West End, how many years went into that to have something like that happen? So for some sort of court system, how many years are we going to need for that? How many, you know, are there grants available for that? I really don't know. I would hope there would be, but I feel like for something like that, sometimes you just like for the people of Sierra Vista, we want to make the best decision for them. I'm sure they're not very happy with what's going on with this, and hopefully everybody lets Judge Kerfman know that they are not happy if they're not. But at the same time, you know, would they be okay with the amount that would be paid in this agreement, or what would they think if we're like, hey guys, we're not going to do this? You know, we're gonna be in the hole, you know, millions of dollars. How would the people of Sierra Vista feel? I know I would be very pissed if I was out there looking in at this. So I feel like it's something that, you know, learn from, if we didn't learn from last time, learn from now, and then plan ahead. We have a strategic plan coming up, the general plan, things like that. This is time for us to make a plan, put out those feelers, and to you know, make a plan for the future. It's something that's going to take a long time. The wheel's in motion. It's going to take a while to move that back. So I feel like, you know, we're at the deadline. Move ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Benning, you were next, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and well said, Dr. Landry. I agree with you on some of the issues that you posted. I think a lot falls on us for not pushing our own municipality. I know Greg, Councilman Johnson pushed it and brought it forward, and it should have been something we've been looking at the last 2 years. And I apologize to all of y'all and to the constituents for not doing that. I voted no last time, and for the same reason that Councilman Johnson said. Our backs are put up against the wall, and you know, it went from 52,000 to 62,000. At least this one's locked in for 4 years, but what's to say in a year in, he has a clause where he can resign if he wants to resign with a 30-day notice. If we want to get rid of them, it's a 30-day with cause. We have to have cause to get rid of them. So one, it's a JP5 friendly contract to begin with. I think sometimes, I don't know where I'm at right now. I'm voting no again. I'll just put that out there. I don't like being held against the wall with a gun in my head saying, you're going to do this. We're going to increase it just because we can. I would like to put the plans in and start working with the council and staff on looking at our own municipality. And I think it's the only way to free us from this, like Councilman Rodriguez said, this hostage situation we find ourselves in.
Okay, any other comments, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if we can, maybe without the 5,000, that in addition, because with the increase to 57 in that formula, 57,645, before you add in that 5,000 per year, that matches with inflation over the last year, and it's not what he wants, it's not what we want, but maybe it's a good in-between. I don't know if that would get more, if that would work for
Well,
everyone.
here's part of
or-
the problem is, one of the reasons this didn't work last time is we tried to negotiate with a committee. And it didn't work. And doing that again will probably not work,
Okay.
okay? So kind of trying to resolve the formula without a negotiator or without talking in executive session to figure out what our true position is not gonna work. Greg?
Yeah, I still think we should table this until next year, have an executive session so we can hash this out, maybe make a counteroffer, and if he doesn't accept it, then we can vote against it. But I truly feel that, bringing this up at the last session and basically your last city council meeting, Mayor, I think is really unfair.
We still got time for another council meeting.
Well, I'm inclined to move to table it from the agenda, so
Okay.
that's going to be my stance, and if that does not pass, I'm voting against it.
Okay. And I'll just say one, Chuck, you go ahead and I'm gonna make a final comment and we'll move on. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I'm gonna try to explain where he's coming. He's not here, but basically, our discussion yesterday, and I think this also applies to our agreement with the county as well. By statute, we have the ability to stand up our own court. So by statute, we have to provide the service. We can do that either through a consolidated court agreement or standing up our own court. So I believe, they view that they have the responsibility for JP5. The county has the responsibility for JP5. The judge is elected to work JP5. They get compensated for that. He gets compensated $115,000, I believe it's going to be for next year. So they view the magistrate services totally separate from what's going on in their normal work with JP5. So the expectation is that since we can do our own, therefore we should pay a share of the costs or costs associated with the magistrate. So we may agree or disagree with it, but I think that's kind of where they're coming from. So it was brought up that Oro Valley has their own magistrate court, and the reason is because the county court systems, the JPs, are all set up downtown in Phoenix or in Tucson, and so the outlying municipalities have magistrate courts. There, they pay $160,000 for their magistrate, and of course they have a staff and all that. They have 100 police officers. We have 2/3 of that, even though the town is the same size. They're not performing with fines either. So, at first I was like, okay, so you get 115 as a JP per state law. Do you want 160 to be the magistrate as well? I didn't. So as we were talking, I'm wondering what this number is going to be, and I had a hard time getting a number from him. And finally, at the end of the conversation, he came up with 62.5, which I don't like any of it necessarily, but based on where we were going or where we could have ended up, I determined that was probably the best we could do at the time. Looking at the numbers for what it would take us to stand up our own court, the potential of jail costs, et cetera, the issues not only with overhead staff, attorneys, translators, police costs associated with transport, and maybe the potential jail costs down the road if the jail district does not go through. Even if he asked for $160,000, regrettably, very regrettably, I would have to recommend that you took that deal. Because when I look at these costs and what you have planned for the future, without wanting to raise taxes on the good citizens of Sierra Vista, taking away from other things that you have planned, it's still a better deal to take it. I don't like any of that, but regrettably, I have to say that's what I would have to recommend.
Okay, thank you for that, Chuck. The last comment I want to make is a skunk isn't going to smell any sweeter whether it's in December or January. So that's kind of how I feel about tabling the issue. So with that, if there's nobody that wants to talk about call to the public or comments to council or adjournment, we're done with the item for today.
And so
Okay.
we would, I'm sorry. So there's no option to, we would take it would be for 4 years.
Yep.
And that's
That's the terms of the contract.
his term.
Well,
Right, wait, how often would that be?
yeah, that's his term, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's elected for 4 years. I was thinking.
And that was the other, and I apologize that this is coming to you now, but of course, we didn't know who was going to be. I mean, we kind of knew it was going to be the JP because he was running unopposed, but it wasn't, certified till, last
Just
week,
recently.
so.
Okay. So we're going to move on to item number B, was the council executive report. And we'll start with Mr. Patucci.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller and members of the council. We have the monthly report before you. Already talked about a few of the items with regards to CCOM and hiring. Of course, we have our Christmas program going on, so Laura's staff is very busy with that. And we have a pretty full report here of everything that's in there. Just mention there's quite a few things going on in the water arena, and we're working very closely with the Fort, Upper San Pedro Partnership, CCRN, and Sentinel Landscapes. We have received funding already once for Sentinel Landscapes, and we're hoping to get good news with regards to more funding for water projects at Riverstone moving forward through that source. But those people are now working very closely with us. There's some things going on with the adjudication, nothing that's really impacting us, and we'll probably need to have an executive session with our water attorney so the council can be briefed up in terms of what's going on, with water, and the Fort proceeds with its biological assessment, biological opinion process, and that should be coming to a head next year too. So that's something we need to keep our eye on as well. So obviously, too, we'll be looking at having our legislators here, so we'll be setting up a meeting for you to address the coming legislative session. And of course, we'll be working to set up relationships and meetings with our congressional delegation as well. So there's a lot on the table coming up from our end. But the departments have also provided reports here, and we stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Patucci. Who's going first? Mr. Benning, we'll do you first since you're on the phone.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything.
Good. Yes, sir.
Great report. As always, this is very valuable information. One thing that definitely concerns me, though, is the construction of State Road 90 being pushed back to the summer. When we were told that it was going to be bidded in January and work would start, bidded in December, work would start in January. It was on Cool FM. We had a little live post. Our state representatives talked about it, talked it up. And now here we are again. It's getting pushed to the summer. I'm not okay with that. And I want to know where our state representation is with this and why we haven't heard from anybody about that. And I know the SV MPO met with ADOT or talking to ADOT, but I hear that all the time about we're talking to ADOT. ADOT never talks back. I never see anything come back from ADOT. So definitely not happy about that at all. So I hope to hear from our state reps soon as to what they're doing to help us out on their end, because it's not acceptable to keep pushing this back This keeps happening every year. So
Every 2 years, actually.
yes, yes, exactly. Either way, it's still it's unfortunate to hear that that's pushed back to the summer. Anyway, so yeah, it's good. People should notice too that their refuge dates are going to be changing, which is good to know, right? Instead of if you're a Tuesday, Friday person, you might be a Monday, Thursday person coming up. So I know that it's going to affect a lot of people, but it's good that we're doing it for ways to keep our trucks more efficient, our routes more efficient, because I didn't realize it hasn't been done in 25 years. It's a long time before we did a plan over, and we've grown a lot. So neighborhoods have grown, and people have annexed, and I get it. So it's good. It's a good time to do that. So I hope everybody understands that that's why they're doing it. The youth commission is mentioned in here. I just want to add that the meeting is every fourth Tuesday of the month. That's what we have. It goes on here. It says TBD, but we're doing that every fourth Tuesday of the month. We're doing it all year because the kids, they're in school, so I'm trying to get them when I can. So every fourth Tuesday of the month, and our first project is coming up January 7th. We're going to do an area cleanup, and then
Did you reach out to the other high schools as well? And
Yes,
Are you getting participation?
I'm getting more participation the more and more I reach out.
Okay.
So it's coming along.
Yeah, because it can't just be Buena anymore.
No, it's coming along. I'm reaching out to everybody, and I've gotten feedback. I've gotten people that say they're going to be there, but
good.
we're rolling with it.
Good.
And then I had a question about the CODI, the Commission on Disabilities, because somebody asked me about that. What is all included in the Commission of Disability? What is the definition of disability?
It's the federal definition.
Right, so I know, but I guess there's some miscommunication on what the actual commission is for. Is it for everybody in our area that has a disability? Can they have their voice heard, or is it strictly for a workforce type
No, it's
disability?
everybody.
No, it's everybody.
Okay.
Everybody's open. If they've got an issue with it's not being met by the city, then they need to show up and say, here's my voice, or here's my sign language, or whatever it is they
Right.
need to use.
Okay,
And if there's an issue, whether it deals with business or city functions,
Okay.
they'll work to address it.
great. All right, we have a lot of businesses in our town too that are trying to be more inclusive, right, and hire more people with disabilities, and so, and any kind of disability. So I definitely want them to be involved and know that they can be part of that commission and have their voice heard. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next.
Yeah, you see all my notes.
Well, I know you, I can't read them.
So, good. It's the way I like it. Wonderful job on the executive report, and I like starting off with Marcom in the front here, because you guys are doing a great job all around. I'm looking forward to the street pole banners, and because I keep getting asked about it too, and the short videos. I love the newsletters. I can speak. They have been great. I really enjoy those, whoever's putting those together. And I just downloaded, I didn't know about the Adventure Guide app. I think that's really cool. And I was checking out some of the tabs in there, and there's one, there's a fun facts tab. I think we should add some stuff about us being the hummingbird capital. So hopefully whoever's listening from Marcom will make a
Well,
note.
you can call the marketing people in
No,
the city
they
and
got it
say,
now.
okay,
And then, yeah, and I want to do that historic downtown tour. They have a tour on there, and you can press play and go to the stops, and it will tell you about each location. I think that's so cool. So great job. And then for Parks and Rec, I saw first I saw the post for the vending machine, the book vending machine in the mall, but that thing is so neat, like just like a snack machine, but books. It's so cool. And I think it's a great way to reach more readers and make that available for, not everyone can drive over to a library, so that's really cool. And the ice skating, we did that on Friday after the parade. That's awesome, and it went really well. I wasn't sure what to expect, but we had a great time. And about 20 minutes before it was over, I finally learned how to skate again, so there we go. Yeah. Let's see. I'm also looking forward to the exhibit being finished for I know you were helping on that, right, Marta? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for the West End Historic Exhibit at the museum opening up. And then want to say congratulations to Diana from Economic Development for her certification. And I know you're already applying it to business retention and expansion here in Sierra Vista. So that's awesome. And I've seen her out on those walks, carrying a bunch of stuff and getting the business, and she's just doing it. She's stomping the pavement, and that I'm so grateful for all the work you're doing. And I know the businesses are too. And then I was really impressed with the numbers already that Station 4 is responding to already. Just right at it. I had wrote down about the shortage of personnel at the police department, because that's something I actually just talked to Lily about, because she'll go out and recruit, and she was saying that even towns out of California are coming into Arizona because they're having trouble recruiting too, and it's like we're talking about Huntington Beach, like Imperial Beach and stuff like that, and they pay a lot of money, but they even have trouble. So it's such good news to hear that we have the civilian officers and more than what we were planning. So just a lot of good things all around. I was really happy. I always enjoy reading this, and thank you for all your hard work. That's it.
Thank you. Anything else?
I have one more thing, sir. One last thing, sorry.
Certainly.
For the building and inspection services, the plans under review, this is public, so everybody can know. People ask us all the time, what's going on with Popeyes, what's going on with Freddy's, right? It's right here. Plans are approved by the city. That means it's in their court, right? They need to start doing something on their end. You gotta poke it with a stick and say, do something, like a little meme, right? Do something. So anybody that wants to know, this is all public out there. Anything that's planned out there is in there. It's in a little phase here, under review. That means it's in our box. It's approved, it's in their box, right? And then the construction phase and so on and so forth. So it's all right here. A lot of questions about that a lot. Why is the city not doing something? Why are we not bringing businesses in? They're all here. And our team does a great job of going out there and poking them and saying, hey, do something, come on. Let's do some, what's the deal? We're calling, the guys like Tony, and then we're calling them back, and what's happening, right? Why don't we see no movement? But just so everybody knows, it's in their court.
And that can be found on the City Council Executive Report on the
Exactly.
city website.
On the website.
There you go.
It is there. I also want to mention tomorrow is another toy drive for the fire department, out where it has been the last few years in the parking lot of Ace Hardware area out there by Taco Bell, 4 to 6 p.m. Right, Chief? So as always, you can always drop off toys or gifts or money at any of the fire stations, but that's a remote location that they'll be out. If you want to come out, bring the family, bring your friends, drop off a toy, unwrapped toy, or a cash donation. They'll get you a tax receipt if you need it. I want to thank the fire department for always doing that every year.
Okay. Anything else on that item? All right, we'll go to item C, which is report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. The only thing I've got to report is last week I went to Mr. Jennings' retirement ceremony. It was a very, very nice retirement ceremony. He's a retired Army colonel who went to the senior executive service, and he's been the deputy commanding general for the last, I think it was 9 years, 10 years maybe. And we're certainly gonna miss him because he was a good friend of the city, and he's involved with the Huachuca 50 and will stay involved with the Huachuca 50. So that's really the only major meetings I've had. I know this is not probably the time for a lot of meetings because of the holidays, but anybody else? Meetings,
I had a few.
future meetings, trips?
The African American Leadership Institute was in town. They toured our city. Most of them are from Phoenix, Tucson area, so it's good to have them in our area. They got a tour of the Buffalo Soldier Museum.
Cool.
And then they came and we met them on Wilcox at the, what's the school on Wilcox?
Lehman.
No.
Lehman?
Nope. But in the old, where their old movie theater was.
Oh.
Used to be Sierra Vista movie theater a long time ago. Leadership, academic, I hate that, I forget the name right now.
Excellence or something? Oh, I know what you're talking
Can I phone a friend?
Tech?
Not Pep Tech.
Arizona Prep.
Arizona Prep, AZ Prep High School.
AZ
Thank you,
Prep.
thank you, Chief.
Okay.
So we met there. They talked about their leadership philosophy. things like that. So it was good to see them coming. A lot of them, the first time ever, they see our exit off I-10 and they've never come this way. So I'm glad they were coming. Their field trip for that 10-week academy was down here. So that was good to see, expose our city to it. I got to talk to them. It was great to see them, and hopefully they'll spread the love about Sierra Vista as they go forward with their leadership roles throughout the state. I met with Miss Henrietta Levesque from the Avengers Inclusion Organization, if you don't know who they are. Awesome organization in town. They are associated with any child with special needs that wants to play sports, do anything like that, get involved. Laura does an amazing job for years with them. Anybody in our parks, rec, and whatever we're calling it today, department.
Fun.
Right, the first responders as well, softball games, soccer games with our Coronado Athletic League, CAC. So I just want to make sure that, everybody's aware that this does exist in our city. It's a great resource if you have anybody with special needs that wants to get out there and do things, whether it's play sports or get involved with somebody that needs to find a job at a local business, all right? And they want to marry up with a lot of business owners in town. So they're looking at maybe attending a commission meeting or doing a presentation here at a council meeting, just so the city and the community is aware of those resources that are out there if you have somebody with special needs. Just little things that, you might take for granted. Thunderbirds are coming back, right, which was awesome last year, right? But you might have some people that have some sensory issues, and loud noises are not good for them. So we get that word out there here. On this date and time, they'll be out there doing their thing. So if you're a school teacher and you have somebody with special needs or sensory issues, make sure you're prepared for those jets to be flying and doing awesome things, which are awesome to somebody unless you have those issues. So just things like that as a community we should all be talking and putting the word out so that way we're all included. That's all I got.
All right, that's quite a lot. Okay, anybody else? Okay. The next is the future discussion items and council requests. Ms. Yarborough, we got anything listed other than what's going to happen after January when we start meeting again?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
said we.
Your
Yeah, like he's
I can
gonna
be in the public.
We'll be bringing the item to council on commissions in the new year, so probably at your first meeting. And just to make sure you all are tracking, we'll also be planning an admin retreat for council sometime in January, and then you'll also be getting more formal invitations and information soon, but a reception before the first council meeting in January, so just to make sure you all are tracking that.
Yeah. And then the annual legal review will be coming up as well, and then the water attorney, I think we need to schedule as well. So.
Now, you mentioned in your briefing earlier, legislature. You had any hopes of getting them before Christmas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we suggested 3 dates in December,
Yeah.
so we should be hearing back at any time from tri-advocates on which date works best for our legislators.
Okay.
So we'll let you know as soon as we get that.
And the mayor-elect is invited, of course, to that.
Yes.
They can start working on the roads while they're here. That'd be awesome.
It'd be
Wrote
like,
a note to bring that up to them.
We'll drive them up and down that road only. Only. Just up and down that road.
On that.
Tour of the road.
Okay, discussion on future items or council requests? Hearing nothing. We'll see everybody on Thursday. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, sir.